c.s.s introduction. Hope you are writing introduction to c.s.s 3.0 brackets animation. Animation. So let's start with the definition. What is c.s.s animation? c.s.s animation lets you add. c.s.s animation lets you add movements. So the keyword there is movement. Underline it. c.s.s animation lets you add movements and transitions. Underline transitions. Lets you add movements and transitions to HTML contents or elements. To HTML contents or elements. On your website or web pages, on your web pages without using JavaScript. It lets you add movement and transition to HTML elements on your web pages without using JavaScript. Now, remember we talked about creating an interactive and user-friendly website. Websites that to an extent can entertain, can give some level of entertainment to your visitors, something that will make them to feel good whenever they visit your website. Part of doing that is, or part of how to achieve that is using c.s.s animation. The word animation generally means what? Effects. Let me use that word, effects or forces that can be added to content in order to change their behavior. Ordinarily, you created, let's say, a heading content or an image content. You know, what the c.s.s 2.0 could do is to size it. If it is text, to color it and to add those basic things we have learned. But if we want it to slide or to possess some animation effects, then we need to bring in either JavaScript or what? c.s.s animation. But what we are saying is that we are trying to ease the job from JavaScript and allow us to focus on more logical aspects of JavaScript instead of trying to achieve simple animation with JavaScript. So the invention of this actually relieve JavaScript or the usage of JavaScript. Before the introduction of c.s.s 3.0, before you can get any form of effects or animation within your web page, you have to write what? JavaScript code. But today, when you enter some websites, you see the kind of effects. You see things just sliding in. You know, you see something just bouncing, just like PowerPoint. For those of us that know PowerPoint, right? PowerPoint, you can create some animation. You see a text flying. So those kind of effects are meant to entertain your visitor. So you need to know how to code them in or on your already added elements. Now, I stopped somewhere. I said without what? Using what? JavaScript. Let's attach this note. They can make a page so that you know the purpose of this. What are you trying to achieve with this? They can make a page feel more interactive and engaging. This CSS animation can make a page feel more interactive and engaging. The engagement is to sustain the what? The visitor. That is why I talk about entertainment. So let's quickly look at the two main subtopic, the two main ways or methods of adding CSS animation. The two main methods. The two main methods on how to add or animate in CSS. So there are two ways, actually. Why I use the word main, there are some materials you come across. They can mention three, and the three will be transform, transition, and keyframe. The powerhouse of all of them all is what? Keyframe. So I'm saying it now so you will not come tomorrow and say you did not hear me. After this class, you will go and do more research on keyframe animation. Because there are so much that one person cannot teach you all of them. Just for me to pick one or two and show you the structure, the syntax. And once you understand the syntax, you can always research and be able to what? To apply it. They are very simple to apply. Don't be scared. So what are the two main ways of animating or adding animation in CSS? One, transitions. Number one, transition. Number one, transition. Number one is what? Transition. You see, some of these terms, some of us are not from, and these terms are not strange to us. If you have done PowerPoint, you should know what is called transition, right? Transition is where you begin to animate, add some effect to the background of your content and even to the text and the images within your slide. So the word transition is derived from motion. Motion. Sometimes when somebody dies and they want to make it, they want to make it to sound scary. They will say what? Transition. The person just transited. They are trying to give you a picture that the person did not actually die. The person just moved from one place to what? Another. So you can still be expecting the person can as well move back. It's possible. Exactly. So when we say transition, this one's focus on movements. Movements. For example, now I can have an element. I just want you so that you can understand the thin line that separates or differentiates transition from transform and from what? The keyframe. These are the three, but I said two of them are the ones I want to focus on. Now, let's say this is your element. This is your box. This could be an image that you have added to your web page. This could be a div holding some what? Content. This could be what? H1. Now, if I hover, there must be an action that will trigger the movements. Since we said animation means what? The movement of an element. So there have to be actual appearance of that element, and then what will now be different behavior when an action is triggered. I have talked about hover before in this class, right? Now, you can get to a page, a web page. You meet an image in one position like this. And you, as a developer, must have programmed with the help of this animation property, saying that once the user gets to this page, don't move this image, just count 3 seconds. After 3 seconds, after 1 minute, this image should move from here to what? To this place. Then after another 3 seconds, this image should move from here to this place. So you can see the programming that is happening now. You are trying to engage the person. You are trying to be innovative. You are trying to be dynamic. These little things keep people what? Within your website. That is transition. So let's quickly understand. Let's look at the meaning of that transition, which is the first way of adding what? Animation. Transition means smoothly changing from one style to another of an element. That young man is not writing. Okay, are you writing? Are they? Okay. I said transition means what? Smoothly what? Changing from one style to another of an element. So each time I use the word element, what I am talking about is what? It could be the content, right? Hello, the word element. Did I get some terms clarified? As a web developer, I don't have to be breaking down some things. Each time I use the word property, which language is that? Property. Which language is that? c.s.s. Each time I use the word element, which language is that? Cool. So I don't have to be telling you. So when I say element, I am referring to what? H1, P tag, or any other word, those tags. Good. Now, e.g., over, effect, write it in bracket after that definition. In bracket, right? E.g., hover effects. E.g. what? Hover effects. So this is exactly what I was talking about. Now, I want to pay good attention here. When you talk about hover effects as a programmer, it means that you are acknowledging that what? The elements will have two different what? Appearance. At one state, this is how it will look like. At another stage, this is how it will look like. That is when you can bring what? Hover. Now, you need to now consider what will be the actual what? Appearance when they get to the page by default. What are they going to see? They are going to meet the object in a certain what? Appearance. Then what will now happen that will cause that default appearance to change? That's the transition. You need to program the action. In JavaScript, we can use what? When you scroll the page, when they scroll the page. When we get to JavaScript, where we will learn event listener. Event listener. JavaScript will now listen to an event. The event could be whenever the user will scroll the page, a picture should bounce. It could be when the user click on the picture should display the price, the name. These are what? Hover, but in CSS context now, we cannot use event listener. Instead, we use what? Hover effect. In other words, when the user hover, what is hover? Hover means what? Somebody just what? Touching the objects, the element. For example, now, this is the mouse pointer, right? Once it comes on this, that is what? I have hover. Not necessarily what? Clicking is different from hover. So what we are saying is that this particular transition animation that we want to add now, we are going to specify that
The only time it should react, the element will react that what effect is when the user what hover on that what object. Then when the user hover on it, it should what increase smoothly. You can add this to what your button, like that button that we created, that subscribe. You can add what transition effect. You know, I was trying to add it that time and I said, let me not, you know, go ahead of the class. There is a topic and this is a topic now. Instead of the user just selecting that button and the button will just do like this, you can say the button should be expanding gradually. That is the smooth effect we're talking about. I hope that is understood.
Yes, sir.
Now, let's quickly discuss before we start looking at the examples. I just want to explain the two of them first. Then I will now start focusing on each of them and do some practicals. Now, let's look at the second one. The second one is keyframe. The second what? The second way of adding what? Good. You are with me. Is what? Keyframe. Every web developer should understand this. Keyframe what? Animation. Particularly those of us, some of us that will be dealing with scripts. You will see that what most of those scripts, you just see some effects. And then those people will be intimidating you as a manual programmer. You will like, how? You just enter a website, the whole body, everything is shaking. So there's this effect that you see. You're like, where will I code this kind of thing? It's just keyframe. The person used much of keyframe. Keyframe is the powerhouse of everything that has to do with what? CSS what? Animation. The powerhouse of it. So that is why I said the assignment is for you to go and drill more of it. Okay? Go and research more on different keyframe. You can set keyframe animation in a way that your background will be changing color. Once they log into a particular page, when they are there for like the first 10 minutes, it will have a red background. After maybe like the next 10 minutes, blue background. So you just see all these things changing. That is keyframe. You can now spread it at what? At 0% show red background, 25% show blue background, 70% show what? White background. You see that kind of structure. That is what? Keyframe. Let's define it so I will understand. Keyframe define multiple steps, underline multiple steps. You can see that's what I was trying to picture now. Keyframe defines multiple steps. Keyframe defines multiple steps. Are you with me? Of an animation. You saw the way I broke it down. At what? 0%, one step, right? 25%, another step. That is what you can only achieve with what? Keyframe, not with just mere what? Transition. Where did I stop? Multiple what? Step of an animation for continuous or repeated effects. Underline that section. For continuous or repeated effects. Using infinity. Once you put infinity, it will continue like that, start all over. Like an advert in a web page. Need this kind of effect. Maybe you have an advert that is popping up, and in as small they are on that page, you want them to keep seeing that word advert. That is kind of the thing you draw the attention of the visitor by adding this kind of word keyframe effect. Now let's quickly look at example of CSS transition / application. So this is the practical aspect now. Example of CSS transition / application. Transition, you know, we talk about two of them, right? Now I want to pick the first one and then we'll do some practical. So I don't need to bother myself. Okay, let me still give us some explanation. about this. Right, under that topic, right? A transition tells the browser, so you know what is going to happen. A transition tells the browser, in brackets, when a property changes. A transition tells the browser when a property changes, comma, animate it smoothly instead of instantly. So when I said instantly here, I'm talking about instead of the element just what? Jumping. Are you getting it? Instead of jumping out, which will not make sense. It should take it what? To increase it gradually, or what? Reduce it what? Gradually. That way it will make more sense. So we are going to apply it. Listen. I have not gotten to where I say you should start using it. That is the problem we have with some students. If I send you out of this class now, you will start crying. You want to show them that, okay, I will stop here, let him come and teach you guys. Oga, come and sit here and complete the class for me. You must. It's not true. You're not beginning to. No, sorry. Come and sit here and complete the class. You are trying to instigate fear in them. That is one thing that I always avoid. You want to make yourself God over them. I'm teaching the topic because we have done it. You are now flashing it. You are one. Learning how need discipline. If you are the only one I'm teaching, what I would do, I will just paraphrase. You meet it in the future. That's just it. Be careful when you are dealing with teachers. Don't give them an impression that you have known it. Even though they will just cut the whole thing short. Now, I will try to explain something. Let's see how we can transit one or two elements. I am going to start with an image. I don't know if I have picture here. I don't have picture here, so let me add a picture to that folder quickly so that I will use it to demonstrate this transition. What's the name of the folder I'm working? Drop down menu. I think it was created in a document, right? I think I'm able to remind myself. Drop down. Now, IMG, of course. Sorry, I need to leave the comments. IMG slash. Now, I was talking about the element having the actual what? Styling first, before you bring in the transition what? Effect on it. So I'll take this element, let me class it. So anyone you research on, I want to see that you give me the actual appearance first before the transition effect or the keyframe effect coming on it. So let's say what? IMG 1. So let me quickly use internal c.s.s because of time. And I know that will also refresh some of us. Now, being a class element, I'll start with dot img1. All I'm doing is just to give the default size of the image first. So I'll say width of this picture that will be transited should be 500 ps. The height should also be 500. Now, let's say I want to add some border radius, because the truth of it is that if the actual picture is not well styled, or the element, if this effect comes on it, the effect will not make sense to some persons. Yes, sir. So that is why you take time to make sure that the appearance of that element is good first. So you just complement it with what? The effects. So let's say, let's just give border radius of 10 ps from all sides. So let's go and check the front end first to see what we have. By default, how they are going to meet the picture. Okay, so this is the actual picture, the border radius. Now, what I want is that I want an effect to come on it when they touch the picture. If anybody come to this side, one way or the other, maybe trying to look for things, once the person just hovers on this, I want an effect. That is what we want to do now. So now the effect will not be added where you coded what? The actual what? Appearance. So what you are going to do now is, so in the actual effect, listen, in the actual selector, that is where you specify the transition itself. Is get the structure, the main elements where you are defining the actual what? Appearance. That is where you call the transition property. Then this transition, what do you want to give to it? Let's say what is going to be a kind of a background, just an example. And how long is going to display? This is the speed now. That is what? 0.5 seconds. Let's say, for example. Now, you now come outside as, okay, what will trigger that particular what? Effect. Remember that you must have defined, okay, in this case, what I'm going to do here, because this was when I am relating it to a div. You know, a div will be like an empty container that you have to give what? A color. And then you are not saying that what? When it transits, then the size will increase. So let me just leave this one here. Then I will just come to this place here and say, call the same element img1, then over. So this is what we triggered what? The transition. Then before you declare your CSS block. Then after this, you will now say, okay, the width that we have here, the width of this element, is what? 500, right? Now on hover, let's say the width should be different. The width should reduce. For example, let's say what? 300 ps. Now, what is going to be the transformation? Scale, transform scale. That's why I said there are three, but we just remove transform because it's working alongside with what? Transition. To transform scale, 1.2. So this scaling transform is to resize. Transform focuses on what? Resizing, not actually what? Effect. So you are only saying that what? When they hover, then it will rescale, it will resize. So if I go back to the front end now and I hover, did you see what happened? It jumped once because this is not keyframe. If it's keyframe now, to move what? Though we have not used timing function. So you can see the effect now. Somebody will have to go and consult JavaScript those days before you can get this effect, the amount of code you will have written. That is one of the things that was making JavaScript difficult for people. So what they did is that they came up with what? Because the program noticed that a lot of people are no longer patronizing this program because of the difficulties in what? JavaScript. So CSS now came up with this what? CSS 3.0, which focuses on what? Animation, in order to reduce the workload from what? JavaScript. Did you understand that first?
Yes, sir.
Now, in the same element here, I can come here and say transform 0.5 second. So if I go back to the element, so you are still having the same effect. So let's us quickly achieve this quickly. I want to start from the simple and then I'll grow to complex. Let's us quickly confirm this. Just create any element. It may not be image. You can try it on text. So while you are doing that, let's just quickly do this first so that you can practice both of them at the same time. So that once you are done working with both of them, then I will just go to keyframe. Just focus, please. Just this. Let me quickly relate it with another element. So let's say we have a div with a class name what? Let's say trans or transition. And this div, please just focus, please. I said you should hold on. So let's say welcome to my web training. And then from my CSS, I also want to what? Specify some basic appearance for that particular div dot what? Transition. Hope I'm correct with the way I spelled it. Okay. So now let's say width. There is no in my own Avi. This one here. Okay, let me just. Now, because this is a div, is a container, so I need to width it. I say you should pay attention. So let me just width this to 500 ps and also give it some height. Let's say 500 ps. Then background color, or let's say background, let's say blue. Then transition background. That is what is the background of this that we want to actually what? Change. That is why you are saying transition background. Transition. Transition background. That is the background of this container that you want to change. And then you want to assign the speed 0.5 second. Now let's unhover the same element dot transition color what? Over. Then the background over should be red. Then the transform scale that we just use now let's say 1.2. So now let's go back to the front end and check. I scroll down, this is it. Can you see it now? You see what happened? So imagine somebody getting, maybe you have content that you have created inside that div, and then once they click like this to change the color, that is an effect. So let's quickly practice that now, quickly. So you are doing it, you are applying it on an image and what? The div. So if you finish on time, you can also try it on a text, like a heading. Quickly, just 10 minutes for that classwork before I continue with the keyframe.
Let's look at the keyframe now. Quickly, keyframe. Keyframe or animation with keyframe. Animation with keyframe. Animation with keyframe. So just to recap it again, right? Keyframes defines define stages. The keyword here is what? Stages of an animation. Keyframe defines stages of an animation. Full stop. Note, you can control exactly how the object moves. You can control exactly how the object moves. You can control exactly how the object what moves, comma, fades and rotates. So you can see the level of flexibility attached to this one. So if you really want to be good at animation, you need to what? Dwell much on the keyframe concept. So let's look at the example here. Let's look at the example. Let me start with let me start also with HTML. That is div. So let's say I have a div with a class name. Let's say what? Welcome. Okay, now let me put some item inside. Okay, welcome. So, web development training. Now, let's define the actual style of this. That is welcome. So let's say the width of this is 600 PS. Height, let's say 600 PS. Then let's also add background. Let's say the background is something like, which color will I use now? Let me just use red. Then add some border radius if you want. Let's say border radius of 50%. 50% automatically is going to make it a circular what? Object. Then let's also add some positioning. and we say what? Relative. And then, now, this is one thing you must understand as a secret of using keyframe. In the actual selector, the name of that what? Keyframe must be defined. Because it is that name that will create relationship or connection. It is that name in the keyframe property. This is that name that you will repeat that will tell the keyframe property exactly the elements you are referring to. So I can now use a property called animation just to define the name. So I will say, okay, the name is bounce. This is the effect I'm trying to bounce. Now, this will bounce. You can see that here now we are not specifying the what? The second. 2 seconds. Then the bouncing will continue. That is what? Infinite. That is what? It will what? Continue what? Bouncing. So we can use this to program an advert like I mentioned before. Now, you will not come outside just like when you were adding over. Okay? You will not come outside and then you now do at keyframe. At keyframe like this. Then followed by the name, exactly the name you use here is what we follow. That is how whatever you are writing here, we know which of the elements is to apply them on. So I will type what? The same word, bounce. Then before opening the what? The bracket. Now inside this bracket now, I will now start declaring the intervals appearance or behavior. Like I said, from 0. So I can now say, for example, now 0%. As 0% means what? When they get to the page, the way they are going to meet it. At 0%, then you create another block. What will happen? Top will be what? 0. Now let me explain it. But meanwhile, go and research on what? CSS position property. Now, CSS position property is a property that is used to determine the placement of an element. Are you with me? Now, it has 4 values: relative, static. We have relative, we have static, we have, there's another 2 again, I'm trying to recall. We have relative, we have static. If I remember, as this why is it running away? Okay, while I continue, if I remember, I will let us know. But remember, research on it. We have 4 values. Now, by default, all elements are position static. So when you call H1, is position what? Static. So there is no need of you saying position static. Good. The another one is absolute. So I've gotten how many now? 3, right? Static, relative, absolute. Now let me just break it down. If you make your research, you see them explaining within what I want to say now. Relative means what? You are acknowledging that this particular element is related to one principal or parent element, right? True or false? True. Now let's prove it. The welcome is a div, right? This div is inside what? Body, right? Now, when you say relative, it means you are saying that what? Your movement is determined by what? The object you are directly what? Related to. That is what? If this object did not permit you to move, you will not move. That is the meaning. Then if I say what? Absolute. Absolute means that it is almost the same thing, but the space you are going to leave, another element cannot occupy it. While the other one flows around with what? With what? The related object. Now, anytime you use position, you will see a programmer using what? Top to regulate it, left to regulate it, right to regulate it, bottom to what? Regulate it. Now you have said, okay, an element should be positioned within a related what? Element. Okay, at the top of that related element, at the left, the right. So anytime you use this property, then to control it, you use what? Top,
left, right, and what? Bottom. Now, so that you know why we put what? Top what? 0. Is that clear? Good. So your research, we see explain more, is a topic on its own. If I notice that you are not able to get it, I will just come and take it. It's a topic on its own that I can explain for a full class. CSS what? Position, element. You have a question? Okay. So now, so this is what you want at this what? Point. Then at 50%, another declaration. The top, you are defining different movement now logically. That's what you are doing now. At what? 50%, the top will be 150. The top will be 150 PS. You know the reason why I not put PS here is of no use because it's 0, right? Good. Then that is 1. I'm trying to distribute so I will have different what? Behavior across different stages. So now, if I want, I can say, okay, define another one at 70, 80, 90. But I want to just jump to what? 100 what? Percent. So at 100%, what will the top be? So now, this place I'm putting top, it can be bottom. It can be what? Left. To get different what? Effects. So that will be 0. That is what? To come back to what? 0. Now, if I go back to the front end now, where is the element? Look at this here. Can you see the element? You know, we say infinite, right? It's jumping. I'm not doing anything. No. So when they get to the page, they will just see maybe this could be an advert, a design, like an advert. So once they get to the page, they will just see bounce. Somebody will think that JavaScript and go and start killing himself. This is just using what? CSS what? Key frame continuously. Now let's go and edit this now from what? Top to what? Let's say what? Right. So that you know that now this right you are defining. If you do not use position, it will not work. This is the parent first that must be declared in the actual element selector. Then you now be using the controlling value in the keyframe. So once you understand the logic, if you are not thinking of many things, if you are not married like us, you can cram all these things. A lot of things. I understand. Singles are even more worried than married because me now, I thank God that I'm married before all this era. Because I don't think I would have been able to save money to marry. It's expensive now. So the single, I'm praying for you. God will help you. There are 2 things. So after you get the money to see responsible lady out of 100, only one good girl you will see. Sorry, please, in case you come across this video as female, I've not tried to demarcate you. I've just tried to say marriage. I bet you want to show that my YouTube page. Now, okay, look at the movement. The that I've changed. Yes, as I put right, you put left, you have different effects. Now, that is because I specify what? Because I specify infinity, right? So if I put is in, can you see it now? If I say what? Is in. If I go back, can you see the way it comes now? It stopped. These are different properties, but probably in the next class, I'm going to what? Explain all the keyframe properties and their functions. But this is where I can stop. Go and practice, make more research, but I'm still going to complete it in the next class. Any question?